All right, so I'm going to talk about AOC. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Can we just throw her middle name in there while we're at it? I mean, let's get a few more syllables. All right, Representative Ocasio-Cortez. I get it. She's got two last names, but I mean, we only have to give her first name every single time, or she doesn't get to be AOC. It's silly. But she's kind of like George W. Bush in some ways, where she is an idiot and very stupid on a lot of things, but yet is still very deviant and, manipulative, and she's not always as dumb as people make her out to be. But if you need any clear evidence that this politician is a real, scumbag, just look up that video from when she was speaking before the Black Luncheon or whatever it was. It was like maybe a, NAACP or something like that. But she got up there and she started doing her accent, Like, it literally reminded me of that South Park skit of when Cartman's got his hand, and it's Jennifer Lopez. I mean, she's doing this accent, and it was such complete, false. It reminded me also of like the way Hillary Clinton would go and give speeches and like change her accent depending on the group she was with, and you can find compilations of that. But AOC, she won and she spoke before this African American group, and basically she put on some sort of like 90s Ebonic stereotype accent to the crowd, and it was such horrific pandering. She might as well have said she had hot sauce in her bag or something that she carries around. I mean, it was terrible. And I don't get what people see in AOC, okay? She's not from the Bronx. She's some rich suburb in northern New York. But, the truth doesn't really matter. And, the problem is you get people on the Republican spectrum that attack people like AOC, and then people on the Democratic side have to then defend their morons, and vice versa. I mean, Democrats and Republicans love to defend their morons. There's morons in the Republican Party, and you'll get Republicans defending those morons. But AOC is an idiot. I mean, her whole Green New Deal was a pathetic piece of legislation that if you actually examined it, you would realize was actually not good for the environment, for the simple fact that every other line in the Green New Deal included union this, union that, union this, union that. Well, I can agree with unions in certain situations on some levels. Hell, I've been involved in advocating for unions at times. But you can't deny the fact that some particular unions are really, really bad when it comes to environmental policy. Some unions support the Keystone Pipeline. Some unions support fracking and mining and all this stuff. So you have an environmental policy that just keeps saying union, union, union. Well, it's like, okay, but if we invest tens of millions of dollars into union this and union that, some of that money is going to go back to the union lobbyists who are going to be promoting the very environmental policies that you claim to be against. Plus, on so many levels, the Green New Deal was not really so much legislation, but just, something it almost looked like something a coked out college student wrote at 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, the Green New Deal was a pathetic joke, and that's why nobody in the Democratic Party voted for it. Nobody voted for it in the Democratic Party, at least in the Senate, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But AOC, she's taken her stupidity to a whole new level when, recently some plant, some troll or whatever from the LaRoche group came and did this just absolutely, you gotta admit, there was some hilariousness in the whole thing. Somebody going and basically saying that we need to, use cannibalism to fight global warming. I mean, it was so off the wall. And the moment the woman started talking, she started off with, "We only have months left." And then right there, you should have stopped her and corrected her. I mean, because even their storyline is what, 11 years, 12 years, you know? So you could have corrected her right there. But, you know, they let her continue, and then she goes on to say that we need to eat the dead. And then, you know, they don't stop her there. They let her continue for 2 more minutes while she talks about eating babies. And at that point, I mean, could you remember the cliche joke about the 60s hippie activists where that they eat their babies and the communists eat their babies? It was an obvious joke at that point, but they didn't stop her. They just continued. They could have just said, no, what you're saying is horrific. They could have booed her. They could have shut her down. They could have said, okay, you know what, we're going to go on to the next person. They could have cut her mic. They literally were holding the mic on they had a boom mic, so basically the microphone's on a stick, right? And she wasn't even holding the mic. They could have easily turned the microphone away from her. You know, I've been thrown out of enough political rallies and town halls to know that the moment I would start talking about, hey, the wars are bad, or, you know, you, Mr. Politician, are a liar, or like, we need to get out of this, we need to get out of that war, yada, yada. The moment I would start talking about things like that, they'd cut the mic on me, they'd pull the mic away, they'd say, we're going to go on to the next speaker, or they'd interject and try to, you know, shut me down from making a point. But, you know, in the case of the LaRoche person, which now everyone's talking about, oh, it's this horrible right-wing group that apparently is communist or something. I don't know. And honestly, it's really hard to figure out what the LaRoche people even stand for. But it's funny how people are just now learning about the LaRoche group. They've been around for decades. If you've ever gone to New York City and traveled around New York City enough, you've probably seen them holding signs somewhere in New York. You know, I don't know what they believe in, because it seems to be a weird mixture of all sorts of different political philosophies and so forth. But it doesn't even matter who the group was that did this. You know, they're looking at, oh, well, it's this horrible group that did it. Therefore, the fact that some person said, eat people to stop global warming, and was taken seriously. And then on top of it, after the incident happened, AOC basically went on and defended the person, saying that the person was a woman in crisis and so forth, and put out these tweets defending her. And it's like, you know, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a conservative, I'm not a Trump person, but had a guy in a MAGA hat showing up to that same rally, first off, they probably wouldn't have let him speak. And then secondly, they would have been really weary of him speaking. Or, you know, even if the person had or had not been wearing a Trump hat, but had been conservative and started speaking, they would have probably got about one sentence out before they say, okay, sir, thank you for your time, we're going to go to the next speaker. They would have shut that down really quick. And so that's the lesson to learn. Like, right or wrong, we live in a country where conservatives are going to be shut down from speaking real quickly. But if you're a woman who's got a accent, you're basically allowed to, and the thing is, and you're a woman with an accent who is believed to be a supporter of AOC or Democrat, they'll allow you to talk about cannibalism for 2 minutes and not be stopped. I mean, that's what happened with the AOC thing, and that this town hall really shows the complete stupidity of Cortez. And she's an idiot, and she's a liar, and, you know, this is the best you have, Democratic Party. It's like on one side you've got Joe Biden, and on the other opposite end you've got AOC. And you don't have one person in that whole party that's really going to talk about our real monetary system, our foreign policy, anything like that. Real actual issues. Maybe Tulsi, 70-80% of the way gets it, but she's not, perfect on some issues. But when you do have somebody like Tulsi who maybe talks about foreign policy and things like that,
they censor her and ensure that she won't get the nomination. So yeah, Democrats have all sorts of flavors of stupid and crazy, but they don't have really any politicians of actual substance.